Anybody that's going to use it is going to be CK.
Yeah, that's right. Don't take them. See, if you don't tell them, they'll never realize. All right, here we go. So we are up to section 3, which is Nevuah, prophecy. All right, so it's going to be a little bit till we get to the actual prophecy content of the chapter, but in getting there, there's going to be a lot of very useful information as always. So here we go.
Sensing a coffee in the future.
Okay. Is that a decaf?
No.
Okay, so Hine. Kvar nizba'er b'chelik aleph perek gimel. We've already explained in section 1, chapter 3, Inyan ha'adam, the idea of mankind, the uniqueness of man, in that shenimtza bai mashlenimtza b'shum nivra acher, that it is found within man that which is not found in any other creature. Dahainu, this is harkava. It's the hybrid. It's the joining. Shenirkavu bai shnei mitzius. Two different realities have been combined. Rechaykim v'nivdalim zemizeh, far and different from each other, and they are haguf v'hanashama, the body and soul. So we spent a long time describing this, that mankind is unique in that it is made of two very different components that shouldn't seem to be able to work together, and yet they do. And they are the physical and the spiritual, to be able to contain within one being physical and spiritual. So that's unique to man, and we're going to be talking about that more as we continue. Vizeh, and this is Kihina yesh ba'adam mitzius nefesh, because within man there is something called the nefesh, like there is for all creatures. The nefesh is what makes things live. So living creatures have a nefesh. And mankind also has that nefesh. And what does this nefesh do? Mishameshes, it accomplishes, it serves lehargasha, for feeling, v'haseichel, and wisdom, or sense, hachakuka b'tivai, which are things that are ingrained into the construct of human beings. And this concept of the nefesh is b'chal b'alei chaim. It's in all living creatures. It's one reality. It's the same throughout, but it's very, very subtle, very thin. It comes through the offspring. Achrei hikaltai. After it is conceived, shortly thereafter, there is this nefesh that's infused into the offspring. And it itself grows as the body grows. And it actually is what builds the body. For whatever is needed for that particular species. And it also grows as the creature grows, the nefesh grows with it. And as he said, and in it is the source for the feelings, as well as the wisdom, which is appropriate for that particular species. Okay, so any living creature that is born, after conception, it's given a nefesh, and that nefesh is what guides its growth. Physical growth, it also provides the mental capacity, which is the idea of feeling and thought. Obviously, every creature is going to be different in that regard, but every creature also has this common denominator, that it has a nefesh that is the cause for the growth, as well as the whatever mental capacity that it contains.
How does this relate to DNA?
How does this relate to DNA? Why do you assume it does?
I don't know, it just sounds like it.
It sounds like DNA, it does.
Genetic in this translation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And also,
Okay.
layer grows. It just has a lot of clues.
Okay. The nefesh, as he explained, is it is a spiritual to an extent. So it might be found within DNA. That might be where it's found. That might be where it manifests itself. But it certainly isn't the DNA. Right? The DNA is a very physical thing. It's something that you can see and decode, if you so choose.
Well, does your DNA grow as you get older?
Yeah, that was a good question.
I have no idea. I assume DNA is.
When you say grow, what does that question mean?
Well, it's coming from the sentence that says it is transmitted through genetic material at the time of conception, then continually spreads, constructing a body appropriate for each particular species.
I mean, DNA is just in every single cell.
So, but it's not the thing doing the constructing.
Well, no, it is the engineer that is absolutely doing all of the
It's
signals.
constructing it, or it's just existent?
Just what?
Is it existent or constructing?
No, DNA is a code that actually
And
sends out the message of what to build, how to build it, everything.
Sounding suspicious.
The guy who does the first research on genetics is this famous guy Mendel. The Ramchal is 100 years before that.
So maybe the Ramchal was the real first.
Well, I mean, there could have been other.
Ramchal didn't create the nefesh. Just putting it out there.
I mean, can we say it's just the
Mendel didn't
this is
create
like
DNA.
spiritual DNA? I mean, it's not. It's not
Well,
physical, the nefesh is not physical.
But the nefesh is what causes the physical growth. So is it manifest within the DNA? It's possible. He's about to say that it's manifest in the blood. So that may very well be what it's referring to, that the nefesh plays out in the form of the physical DNA.
We can't
That's
measure,
possible.
we can't measure nefesh. We don't do.
Correct. We can see what the nefesh does. We can't see the nefesh itself.
Maybe it's another example where Chazal knew way before science.
It is.
So is the nefesh finite?
Is the nefesh finite? Can you call anything spiritual finite?
I wouldn't, but I don't know.
Okay, so then there's your answer. Whatever you would call it spiritual, it is a spiritual source.
If the nefesh is in the blood, if we're saying the nefesh is in the blood, something is in.
Again, it
something
manifests
else.
in the
We're
blood.
not- we're-
It's
we're
connected.
bringing it down into finitude, finitude.
Yes. Let's continue for a little bit, and then we'll revisit that. Okay. So kihine, b'balei hachayim atzmam, when it comes to all the different creatures themselves, yesh hefresh gadol b'haskalasam. There's a big difference in their level of intelligence. Right? You have some creatures that are what we call smart, dolphins and monkeys and things like that. And then we have ones that are not so smart, like cows, things like that, right? We don't attribute much intelligence to some, and we attribute a lot of intelligence to others. But obviously, haskalas b'nei ha'adam nivdelas haskalas kulam have the gadol. The difference between the intellectual capacity of a human being is obviously very much greater than that of any animals.
I met some people.
Capacity. I'm talking about their capacity.
I was going to say, come stay with me in my corner one day.
I'm not saying what they actually do with it, but I'm talking about the capacity.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, v'ulam calls a nasa b'nefesh hazayis. All of this happens through the nefesh. Kifi chuka hativi, based on its prescribed nature. Kifi hachanas hakelim hamishtam shemla, and for all of the appropriate tools that it needs for its own existence. B'chol min v'min, for every different species, lefi ma shehu, based on what it is. So what he's saying is that every kind of creature has its own setup, And the nefesh that's implanted into this creature is there with a plan to design this creature with what it needs, all of its physical capacity, all of the different tools that it needs, all of its mental capacity, whatever it's going to be. Every creature has that. And that's what makes it into what it is. So the elephant gets an elephant nefesh, and the person gets the person nefesh, and the amoeba gets the amoeba nefesh, right? Everything that lives has a nefesh that gives it its physical properties as well as its mental capacity. Okay? Yes?
And this is, you would say this is eternal.
Would I say it's eternal? I don't know. I don't know if it's eternal.
That would be negating that it's finite. That's the whole question.
Well, eternal also would include Olam Haba, right?
Well, if an animal dies, does it mean its nefesh lives on and it goes into another animal? Or does the nefesh die with it? I don't know. But yeah, if it were to die, then yes, that would certainly make it finite. If, again, something spiritual, if it has any limitation, if that's called finite, then yeah.
Unless the
Then
nefesh goes somewhere
by
else.
that definition, it would not be spiritual.
Would it not be spiritual?
The further we go
Why?
with this logically is-
Why?
is that-
Why?
is
There are
spirit-
malachim that have limitations.
Is Amalachim finite?
There are malachim that their existence ends every day. There are malachim that are created every day and they stop to exist.
Also, we haven't said.
So that doesn't make them less spiritual.
Die?
You can't really call it a death, but they exist for a purpose, and then when their purpose is completed, then they stop existing. I wouldn't call it a death per se.
From
We
our
haven't said
perspective,
what the
when-
nefesh does when it does. when a person dies.
Right, but let's.
I thought the neshama was eternal.
The neshama is for sure eternal. We're not up to the neshama yet. Yes.
Level of the neshama.
Yeah, we're going to get there. That's what we're going to be talking about today. But as far as your connection between things being spiritual and being eternal, I wouldn't make that connection. Why would you make that connection?
Spiritual.
Why does something spiritual necessarily mean that it exists forever?
Concept could exist forever,
But I mean, it's ongoing.
Well, a malach is created. Is that malach spiritual?
I would think so.
Right, and yet that malach ceases to exist at the end of the day. So, what happened?
Gabriel.
Oh, he's still around. But there are myriads of malachim that are created every day. They sing praises to Hashem at their appropriate time, and then poof, they're gone. And new ones are created the next day.
Is there something about it's gone? It means
So
nothing?
it's not being spiritual doesn't necessarily mean you're eternal. Am I missing something here?
No. I'm hearing. I'm just trying to connect the dots.
Okay.
Let me.
Well, we haven't learned what happened to the
Right.
nefesh.
We don't know.
when it died.
It's all just.
Well, again, let's forget about the nefesh. Let's talk about other spiritual things. In other words, Stephen was making an assumption here that because something is spiritual, that necessarily means it's eternal.
Well, we're assuming when you say poof that it's completely.
Malachim, absolutely, yes.
say it-
Malachim are created for a specific purpose. They do their job, and then they're gone.
When
They
we say
finish their
eternal,
job.
We're saying it's outside space and time. That's eternal, correct? By definition, eternity is outside of space and time. I can't go all the way to the outer space and find spirituality.
Correct.
I took a rock and had the ability to go to the deepest areas of space on the cusp. There's no cusp because there's no cusp. Because if there was a cusp, it wouldn't be infinite. So therefore, if we're saying it's, I'm saying it, or I'm trying to think through this, that if something is spiritual, it is outside of space and time. We're not going to shoot a rocket ship up to deep space and find a malach.
Correct.
You're not going to equate God being outside of space. and
Hold
time.
on. I'm still missing the connection here. Your assumption was that if something is spiritual, it has to be eternal.
I retract that. I don't know if it has to be eternal.
Okay,
I
so,
don't
yeah,
know what
I
the
would-
working definition of eternal is.
I would assume the working definition of eternal means it's something that never ends. Right? So
Only
Hashem
Hashem is eternal.
is certainly the highest level of eternal. A neshama is a piece of Hashem, so therefore has some degree of that. But everything else is not.
Everything else
But that doesn't mean they're not spiritual.
it's all in space and time.
Is it malach in space and time?
No.
but that not the definition of eternal is it's outside of space and time. It does.
Is a malach tied to space and time?
I ask you, Rabbi.
My answer to that is no. It's not tied to space and time.
So that's the problem.
But not being tied to space and time doesn't mean it lasts forever necessarily. It can still end. It's just not tied to a time that it ends. Its end is tied to accomplishing a mission. It's created to do something, it does it, and now it ceases to exist because it did what it was supposed to do. It was only created within that.
Because when you don't have time.
But it's not time. It's not related to time. Of course it's related to accomplishing. That's not true. Of course you can accomplish without time.
There's no before and after.
There is no before and after, that's correct, but there can still be accomplishment. It's just not related to time.
Okay, beautiful. I'm just,
Wow.
the doctor.
You need to sleep on that?
I need acid.
You need acid.
Let's go back 25 years ago. We could try this
When you
again.
say gone,
Mm-hmm.
does that have some special meaning? I mean,
No.
created and gone.
Yeah.
Okay, well, from
Simple.
the time it was created, the time it was created,
Yes.
to the time it was gone,
Yes.
it feels like there was some time involved there.
Correct. But was it experiencing time? Unlikely.
So you can't clock.
I have no reason to think that that exists in the physical world that is governed by the laws of physics. It exists in a different realm that it has no physics. There is no time and space.
And that whatever that area is related.
You
to
can't
that
call it an
particular
area.
law. It's no law. It's that area, whatever
That existence is
not bound by the laws of
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 physics.
space and time.
correct.
Oh, I see, but there
Okay.
is an intersection between.
There's a connection.
Connection.
Yes, that's what the chains that we learned about.
So they're right, so there's a
The chains
connection
connect worlds.
into the world.
Right. So something that exists in an upper realm can go through a transformer and exist in a different state in a lower realm.
But that's the Ishtastelis or something, right? The chain.
Mhm.
Through that chain, the spheros and the worlds and these things become the transformers.
Mhm.
Really, the spheros. And would you say that the spheros are definitely not infinite, or are they?
We haven't discussed spheres, so I'm not going to, because I don't know anything about them. So until he tells me about
They don't
them,
exist.
I don't know anything about them. So I don't know what they are.
But those transformers we are talking about.
Those we talked about. We talked about the kaiches, we talked about the malachim, and we talked about how different malachim are there to create the bridge or the transformation from one realm to the next, and from one world to the next. And every level malach is able to transfer its shefa from point A to point B, and then the next one can transfer from point B to point C, until eventually it gets down into this world.
The malachim sound like they're interfacing, connecting.
That's
with time,
one
space,
aspect
interfacing.
of malachim. But remember, the whole time and space thing only happens on the very lowest level. Above that, there's no time and space above this bottom level. There is no time and space.
Bria, Yetzira, Atzilus, of course, there's no time and space.
Bria is the creation that created this world.
Right, but we're in Asiya. Asiya
Is the world that we live
the
in.
physical world.
Correct. So the physical world has the creation of time and space. All the other worlds don't have that. Those are creations.
Though in this Bria,
The creations were limited to
in the Bria,
the world that we
Asiya,
live
the
in.
creation of us in this world.
Correct.
But in the other worlds, Yetzira, Bria, and Atzilus, there's no time and space.
Correct.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What are you sorry
I
about?
just want to talk it out.
Finally, somebody's willing to talk. All right, is this all crystal clear now? Okay, good. Glad to hear it. Okay, so okay, v'hine. Chaim. B'nefesh ha'adam, in the nefesh of mankind, yibachanu b'chines v'kayches. There will be certain certain levels and certain abilities that will be found within man, because again, the nefesh works differently for every creature, each one for its task. So the nefesh of every animal is different than the nefesh of the next animal, and the nefesh of an Adam is different than the nefesh of the next Adam. So within mankind, the nefesh is able to create some of the abilities that we are aware of. Kigain, for example, hadimyon, the idea of imagination, hazikaron, memory, haseichel, sense, haratzain, and desire, or will. Kulam koiches benefesh. All of these are powers of the nefesh. Mugbalim begvulim yiduim, and they are limited to specific limitations. Upayalim bedracham yuchadim, and they work in specific ways. So there's a certain degree of ability that the nefesh of mankind gives, and those are things that are common to human beings. The ideas of free thought, the ideas of memory, planning, things like that. All of these things are things that are unique to mankind, at least to the extent that they exist within man. And other creatures will have varying degrees. Some of them will have none of this. Some of them will have some of this. And every creature will vary with the amounts of all these different things it will be given, if at all. Okay? So this is all still fairly physical. No. However, milvad calls that, in addition to all of this, nimtza oid ba'adam etzias nafshi nivdal ve'alyam oid. There is another level of the nefesh that exists within man that is separate and much higher than what we've been discussing until now. Ve'ena tachlis b'biyaseh la'adam, and it doesn't have a goal for coming into mankind. Ella l'kashrei b'shorosh malyanim. It has no goal other than to connect it with the upper roots. Sheyesh loy l'kasher bam, that it is able to connect with those upper roots. Liyas maisav ma'lidim toiladatam, so that his actions will cause products b'koiches ha'alyanim, in those upper koiches, b'koach gadol, in a very strong way. So what he just said here is that the higher level of nefesh that mankind alone has is there to connect a person and his actions to the upper realms. And through the actions that mankind does, the upper realms are affected in a very powerful way. So when I do something right, because I have this connector called my higher nefesh, that is going to not just manifest in this world with whatever I did, it's going to also connect to the upper realms and accomplish there too. Okay? So that's the mechanism that connects our deeds that we do here to the upper realms. Okay? So when I give tzedakah, the physical manifestation of that is that this poor person now has an extra $1. The spiritual manifestation of that is whatever it's going to be, and that is going to, let's say, for example, as we know, tzedakah tatzim imavis, tzedakah can save from death. So in the physical manifestation, the poor man got $1. In the spiritual manifestation, the person in the hospital just survived the heart attack. Or maybe not in the hospital, right? So those two things happen simultaneously through two different methods, though, two different branches. One is through the physical manifestation of what happens through what I do physically, and the other is a spiritual manifestation that my connector to the spiritual realms, called my higher nefesh, is going to take that deed, bring it up to the higher realms, it's going to do what it needs to do, and come back down and accomplish whatever it's going to accomplish. Okay? Now, this is all in the positive, but obviously this is true in the negative as well. If I do something wrong, it's going to have its physical ramifications, if there are any, and it's going to have its spiritual ramifications, which again will come back down in some form or another, accomplishing something negative in this world. Okay?
Could the negative that one person does not affect that individual that did the act, but actually affect another person in a negative way?
Yes, things that we do can affect other people in the spiritual sense. Coming from the spiritual sources, the things that we do can accomplish for others. So if I give tzedakah, it could save someone else's life, and vice versa. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess vice versa would not be appropriate, but same would be true for other people. If I save someone's life, I give tzedakah. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm just trying to see if there's anything else I need to add over here. Okay. Okay, so he continues and he says, "U'metzios hazeh," and through this reality, this existence of the higher nefesh, nimshach hashefa hanishba la'adam. In addition to what we've just mentioned, that the things that we do affect and influence the kaichos above, and then those in turn come down back into this world to accomplish whatever they need to accomplish. But in addition to that, they also are the conduits for a shefa to reach mankind. Min ha'makayros al-yainim, from the spiritual sources. So not only is it's not a one-way conduit, it's a two-way conduit. So it connects our deeds to the spiritual realm, and then connects the spiritual realms back to us. And it goes from there to the nefesh that we mentioned earlier, meaning the lower nefesh. And then it goes from the lower nefesh to the body. So again, there's this chain system in which we have the upper realms being connected through the higher nefesh, and the higher nefesh then connected to the lower nefesh, and the lower nefesh is connected to the physical body. So the things that we do go up the chain, and then the shefa that Hashem sends back down comes down the same chain. Yes?
This paragraph has the word roots in it 3 times. Can you remind me of the
What in it?
word roots?
Oh, the car?
So we used that several times several weeks ago. What was the
Here it's
Source?
In Hebrew, it's source. So
The
it's
sources.
about roots.
source?
It's
Yeah. We use the same word kind of for both in Hebrew, but source is certainly easier to understand. But we talked about the spiritual roots, meaning the root is where what brings everything to the destination, right? So the roots are the source, and then the outgrowth is the body or the trunk or whatever it is of whatever you're discussing. So the roots are the sources.
The Ramchal says, "Hanefesh ha'elyona."
Yeah.
So this is not. He's speaking about a higher nefesh, not the neshama. Is there a distinction?
Is there a distinction between the higher nefesh and the neshama? Okay, so we're going to talk about that. I don't know if we're going to get there today.
Number 2.
I don't think we're going to get there today. But the neshama is kind of a catchphrase, because it's used to refer to different things. As far as the technical terms go, the neshama is one level of the higher nefesh. The term that we use in the vernacular for neshama, it kind of includes all of it. But the technical term for neshama is one of the 4 levels. So for now, let's just stick to the word that he's using, just to keep it clear and discernible. Okay. Okay. Now, v'hanefesh ha'elyona. Now this higher nefesh, manheges es hatachtana, will guide the lower one, upayelas ba pa'ulitzim mitzarchais, and it will cause within it the things that need to happen. It will cause them to happen. B'chol zman mizmanei ha'adam, in all the different times that are necessary for man. Lefi ha'yachas shehu misyaches, based on the connection that it has, ha'kesher shehu miskasher, also another form of connection, im ha'ayonim, with the upper realms. So, meaning to say, the upper realms, as we've already learned, is where all the changes take place, and then those changes are sent down the chain into mankind or into the world at large, whatever it is. And this is the chain. This is how it happens. It goes from those kaiches to the higher nefesh, which is connected to those spiritual realms, and then from the higher nefesh to the lower nefesh. The higher nefesh guides and acts on the lower nefesh, which in turn goes into the body and does what it needs to do.
So, Rabbi, are you saying that it goes up the same way it comes down?
Mm-hmm.
Like through the Shefa, Malachim, Kokos,
Mm-hmm.
higher, lower?
Metaphorically, could we look at this like precipitation in a rain cycle? The rain comes up, it goes down, then it's drawn back down.
Yeah,
back up,
yeah,
and it goes
yeah.
back
You
down.
could, except that it's missing the conduit. What's the conduit?
All right.
Right. So that's what we're describing is the conduit that makes that. What you're describing is the process, but we're talking about the container here, the transformers. Okay.
OCI.
Yes, that's for sure. Okay. And then finally, hi Sobrano, welcome to the end of my class. Yeah, you're gonna be here in the chapel. Okay, I'll see you soon. Anyway, so let's finish up here. V'hinei hanefesh hazais. Now this nefesh miskasheres b'tachtaina. It connects to the lower nefesh. B'tachtaina b'chelik hayeser dak shebadam. The lower nefesh connects to the most subtle, thinnest part of the blood. So through that is the connection between the body and each of the levels of the nefesh, or what he calls the two neshamas, interestingly. Yeah, that's what he calls them over here, even though until now he's been calling them nefesh. So what he's saying over here, and this is based on the pasuk says, Ki adam hu nefesh, that the blood is the nefesh of a creature. So what he's explaining that to mean is that that's the point of connection. Somewhere in the blood system is where the nefesh connects with the physical. That's where it happens. The life force that's powering things, that's getting its influence from the higher nefesh, that happens in the blood, somewhere there. He doesn't explain what that means. I have no idea what it means, but somewhere in the blood is where that connection takes place. Now, with that DNA, I don't know. Whatever it is, it happens there. That's what the Torah calls the nefesh, is the blood, which is the reason the Torah says we're not allowed to eat blood, because that's tantamount to eating the nefesh, which is something we are commanded not to do. And therefore, there is that connection. So basically, the bottom line is we've created the entire chain. We have the lowest level is the physical, is the blood. That's where it starts. And that's, where everything in the body runs through. And that is connected to the lower nefesh. The lower nefesh is connected to the higher nefesh, which is it's in turn connected to the upper realms. So all of the shefa goes up and down through that chain. All right, so we'll stop here. Right, that's what I said. It's interesting that he changed it to the term neshama. All right, thanks for coming, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Have a wonderful day.